Good morning. How's everybody doing? We're going to switch it up again this morning. I'm getting predictable, aren't I? And I want to talk about something. Hmm. See, it's one thing to discuss thought processes, but a lot of times hearing something from someone else still leaves us confused on whether or not it's applicable for our own lives, right? And sometimes it's really hard to come up with your own solution based on a concept of how you would do it. Something you never thought about before. You never practiced. You never even considered the possibility. And now that it's in front of you, there's no instruction manual. What do you think about this? Not how do you think about this? It can make it a little scary to try to navigate new areas in life. And it can cause you to have fears and self doubt develop based on it not being familiar. A lot of what I talk about, a lot of the views that I express through philosophy, it's not a way you're used to thinking about. You have to think differently. They teach you the first thing you learn about philosophy is how to think. It has nothing to do with like what somebody said, it's how to process the information. And that's a big one. It's a hard one to learn. It's something I haven't really touched on. I've been packing in concepts for you to consider. So I'm going to give you a tool this morning, or I consider it a tool. Maybe you consider it useless. Maybe you won't pick it up. That's completely on you. Maybe you'll tell me in the comments that you hate this idea and I'm completely wrong and this is why. I'll calmly take in your response and try to understand it from your point of view. But it's really just a mindset and the way that you take your mindset and interact with the world. This is how I do it anyway. Remember, this is all opinion based, and I use facts to show you why my opinion exists, but it's still my opinion. Don't follow me. I got a face tattoo. However, I learned this thing a few years ago, and it unlocked a part of life that I didn't even realize I wasn't participating in. I like to help people. I don't even know why. It's like ingrained into me. It's written in my on my spine somewhere that I'm just going to try to help people. There's nothing I could do about it. It's in my DNA. Or maybe if you do, have things in the world and you feel you need to balance guilt, shame. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm in any guilt or shame, but I definitely want to help. And I'm constantly trying to relearn. And then I learned this thing. I learned this thing that, like, I'm going to share it with you now. You be careful with this thing. It's serious. I'm going to give it to you. And it had to do with interacting with women. And I never considered myself a negative person or a mean person when it comes to women. I might be direct, they're in their feelings, but an asshole? Not to a level where I'd cause trauma in any way, shape, or form. Not in many, many, many years. Y'all got to start somewhere. I don't remember where I heard this. I know I'm leading up to it, aren't I? Suspense is killing you. But I learned that to communicate with a woman properly, because my mind thinks in logic and facts. And when presented with a problem, my mind immediately goes how, as you're speaking about it, I'm diagnosing it. By the time you're finished speaking, I've already formulated a full diagnostic response based on the information that you've given me. It's how my mind works. It's annoying. We're used to. And then I heard something that was so profound that maybe you'll even consider it a halfway good idea. I learned that when a woman is expressing her feelings to me, I need to take a moment and clarify the parameters of the conversation. You go, what? Listen, I'm not a nerd, but like these are good words to use to give you an accurate view of what I'm trying to say to you. I say this, start to speak, and I go, listen, I only need to know one thing before you get started. Do you need to be heard or do you need advice? It's profound. And as soon as I started making that part of the conversation, it changed the conversations. It allowed me as a human being, because I really do care. I'm not just pretending. I don't need accolades. I don't want recognition. I don't care about none of that, but I really want to help. And even by considering asking this before I start a conversation, which now includes everybody, it doesn't just include women. This is how I think when I express it. And usually I don't have to just ask that question. I can diagnose whether or not I just need to listen or if they're asking for advice, because I'm listening to understand now. And the idea of asking someone if they need to be heard or if they need advice, that matters a lot. And if you consider that when you encounter people, well, it changes the conversation that you have with a person. And in doing so, the person that is expressing something to you gets what they need by speaking to you about it. And that exchange of energy, anybody ever felt like they weren't being heard when they were speaking? You ever had somebody pause so you could say what you had to say and get your 2 cents in, and you felt like you contributed now? Do you see the difference in the positive creation and the negative destruction just from this simple concept? Do you need to be heard or do you need advice? Now, me, you would think as much as I speak that I need to be heard. I don't. I don't. I've never had somebody come save me. Really never had anybody in my corner. Oh, poor me. No, no, nope. I seek advice. When I've reached the limit of my understanding and ability to take care of a situation, I seek outward advice and take the sum total of a bunch of different people's advice and find the common denominators that may help me do what I want to do. I seek advice. When I communicate, I seek advice. You think I'm talking, but really I'm seeking advice. Every one of these conversations that I'm having with you, I'm seeking advice. I don't need to be heard. You could have thought of this on your own. It's just that you didn't. Now you are. And now that you've thought about it, I've tricked you into thinking about something new. Could you please give me some advice on do you agree with me or not? And not you should agree with me or not. Do you agree with me or not? And can I please have your understanding based on what I've gathered together to look at? And here's this pile of things. What do you think about this? I always seek advice. Seeking understanding to me is seeking validation. And I don't seek outside validation at all. Don't even kind of care if anybody else is, on the trail with me. Doesn't matter. This is my life experience. Do whatever I want. The repetitive things are boring. So I don't want to do them. But whenever you ask a person, or at least have the mentality to think about this thought before you engage with that person, they start to tell you something, immediately you go, Do they need to be heard, or do they need advice? And what's funny is, if they need advice, they'll ask you. Okay, so mostly people need to be heard, and they're going through something. They need to share the burden, and if you pick it up for them, now two of you have that burden, you see, and now they rely on you to help them with that burden because they were trying to set that burden down in the first place. But if your advice is to help them unburden themselves, then you've helped. But outside of that, it's my understanding, based on this philosophy, that people just want to be heard. And it's not even about whether or not what they have to say is right. They just want to be heard. So, of course, if you watch all the wolf videos, by the way, these are in order. You should start with the introduction video, and you should start at one and work all your way to here, because by itself, some of these concepts we're going to start to get into, and the tools that I see are helpful for people to interact with each other and make the world a better place, some of them are really far out here. You know, giving and being nice to someone randomly every time someone does something bad to you. That's a pretty obscure theoretical practice, I promise. Most people don't even think that's even remotely a good idea. And they don't see any kind of benefit to it. And they won't do it for 61 days straight, so it doesn't even become part of their life. So I don't know, you know. And this concept, do you need to be heard, or do you need advice, has helped me in so many ways understand people. Because when you do that, watch this, you're gonna love this. So when you meet someone, whatever they're speaking on, whatever they're talking about, if they're sharing pain or pleasure or knowledge or whatever it is, instead of looking at somebody and saying they're bad, instead of looking at somebody and judging them in first gear, instead of being in that mode, what if we looked at everybody? And I know this is going to just piss some of me off. What if we just looked at everybody as a level of education and understanding? And instead of people being bad and good, why don't we diagnose them as, this is what they've had an opportunity to learn, and these are the things that have been in their life that's taught them these lessons? Instead of approaching psychology towards a person, why is it we don't instead diagnose the river to help us better understand in psychology, right? Swinging at psychologists again. Why don't we instead understand the parameters of what they have and haven't learned? It doesn't make them bad or good. It's a lack of education. And that lack of education and that lack of understanding on their whatever isn't their fault. In fact, you could say that most of the programs and social constructs that we have at this point are actually what's creating people to act out of their own human nature. How come we talk about society as something that people are destroying, instead of society is the reason that people are being destroyed? How come we're saying it backwards? I think you all said it wrong. I think I just said it right. And understand, if someone needs to be heard, that they're expressing where they're at. And if you've been there, then you understand them. And if you haven't been there, you can't even have any empathy for it because you don't understand it. And how can you give them good advice if you've never had any life experience in which to express what you went through? How can you be a psychologist with no applicable life experience? You can't. That's what's funny about it. So it makes it so weird. There's very few minds that are so rational that they're able to make judgments calls based on pure facts. There's a lot of emotional everything mixed into all of it. So this understanding, at least from my perspective, that no matter who I meet and no matter what I've been through, There's a bunch of other things that I haven't been through. And the people that I meet may or may not have been through things similar to what I've been through, but they've definitely been through things that I never even would have. My life just didn't play out that way, and there was no way to have that experience. That understanding that I'm bad in certain areas because I don't have the life experience and I don't have the understanding. And I'm therefore judged based on other people having that understanding, but they don't have any of the understanding of the things that I really excel at and have had a lot of experience in. You see how that sliding scale works? So if in your mind you use this idea, do you need to be heard? Change that. I need to listen. You'll tell me if you need advice. And I need to listen because out of all the random experiences I could have had, I'm having that one right now. I met that random person. And there could be some significance to that random encounter. That's all I'm arguing for. There may be a reason that this person is here, and maybe it's just because randomly they happen to be interested in the same field of mechanical study or science or whatever, and they were thinking about one thing and they're clear over there, but they said one thing, and that idea that they brought to you changes all these things over there off just one conversation. You can't tell me that's not possible. And you can't show me the probabilities for or against my idea. Not with math. Not even with quantum computers. So this idea that I need to listen, and you'll ask me for advice if you need it. There's no place for ego in that at all. There is no place for ego in that. Ego under control is confidence in your ability to deal with things that you've already dealt with. You go, what? Let me say it again. Ego, properly under control, is absolute confidence in things you've already overcome and being able to do so again. That's how I look at ego. Who the fuck wouldn't be proud of themselves for surviving a bunch of shit and figuring out how to live through it? Because if it wasn't something you had to live through, like physically almost died from, it was a random social construct you had to interact with, and that was just a life lesson, in my humble opinion, on my philosophy page. There's a weird sliding scale called reality, and it's all based on our perceptions of how we think about things. Some people see a war and they think it's the worst thing in the world, and some people in the world see a war and they start calculating how much money they're going to make off bullets. Not everybody's the same. But if you approach it with, I should listen, then people tell you who they are. It's miraculous. There's no way not to. To communicate with somebody is to express yourself, what you think about, what activities you're involved with. All of these things are absolutely fundamentally mixed up in the words that humans use to communicate. Glass half full, glass half empty. I'm a victim, I'm a champion, I'm a bully. All of these things, no matter who you speak to, the way I see it, you can see it too. That's why I make these videos. That's why I fight this war, what I consider not even misinformation, just misdirection of concepts. It just keeps being it keeps being that I need to give advice. And my advice is to think. And here's all the weird, crazy ways that I'm completely outside of the box in the way that I grasp things, the different angles I try to approach them from, not for your benefit, for mine. It's my life experience. I'm trying to become the most balanced human I've ever been. And I have a starting point where I was completely unbalanced. I know what the other side of the wobble is, and I want to see what the other side of the wobble is, right? Like, been all the way to 23-hour lockdown in a 6x9 cell for 6 months at a time. I've been all the way there in our society. Now I'm like real close. There's a couple little minor inconveniences, a couple little life lessons left, and then I'll have a balance. And then there'll be really crazy things that probably happen to me in my life. I've never said that any of this has been easy. I've never told you that in any way, shape, or form, bad things are going to stop happening to you. I'm not going to say in any way, shape, or form that you are healed all the way or that I'm healed all the way or this is a working, living, breathing concept and proof of concept all mixed together with some self help therapy like the world has never seen. And I have at least a couple of people that watch, which means I've already won. I wanted you to know that I've already done my 61 videos and I've already completely changed the world. The entire world, if everything is interconnected, is a single person. So if two individuals are contemplating the same idea, that's changed the world. Your concept of how to change the world and why is based on ego. My idea and understanding of way to change the world is to simply be the change I want to see in the world. The change I want to see in the world is people start thinking more. And if one other person took one word I said and thought about it, I won on the very first video. You see, it's not about views or how many people get involved. It's that people are already involved. And that's been a truth since the time I started, since the very first video, people got involved. And every time I make another video, there's a chance for somebody else to get involved. And if I make 100 more videos and I only get one other person to think about it, changing someone's mind is the hardest thing in the world. You can change all kinds of things, but who they really are on the inside, only they can change that. This is an ultimate truth. You have to decide everything yourself. That's true. So thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope you listened not to respond, but to understand the advice that I'm giving myself by talking to you. Because if you speak and you don't listen to yourself, if you don't understand yourself, if you're not your own best friend, if there's parts of yourself that you pretend don't exist, you're too far in the videos. You got to go back a few, like 40. And not that you need to or that I have the answers for you, but I'm a philosopher. And what a real philosopher looks like, and how a real philosopher thinks, and how a real philosopher talks. Free thinking is the creed of a philosopher. There's a few, but they're chasing money. And there's a fuckload of them or too high on drugs. But there's some really beautiful, amazing people out there, and you're probably one of them, who likes to think. And the more people that get together and think about a common denominator, the better understanding we have of it. Is why the only thing I fight against is lies as I see them. Whenever I see them, immediately, especially if someone's pretending to be something they ain't. I'm a wolf. Like, you ain't shit. You ain't shit. But you could be. I guess it's just how you perceive it.